start this particular panel by introducing the panelists, and given most of them are more humble and very capable, I will take myself an opportunity to introduce them in half a minute each before we jump into the topic, because each of us bring some unique perspective which I want you to know about their background before we actually pick up the topics and go one by one. As usual, ladies first. Surbhi Kaul, who comes from Google Home. An undergrad from IIT Kanpur and a master's from Texas A&M. She spent almost the last 10 years of her career in Google working in groups like YouTube, which, as you know, has a huge AI component, and currently working in Google Home, which is Google Assistant as one of the products in their portfolio. And she's going to give us some interesting perspective of what they're planning to do, publicly known information, as of course, and going to bring us, to that core. We have Piyush Malik, an undergrad from IIT Delhi, who spent almost a decade at IBM in various consulting roles, IBM and Pricewaterhouse, and last couple of years at IBM, he was involved in figuring out how to productize some of their AI products across the industry. Right now, he is part of a startup called SpringML, with a dealing both with enterprises and startups, and helping them figure out how to play in the AI space. Last but not the least, the person with the longest industry tenure, Sanjay Mittal, an undergrad from IIT Kanpur and a PhD from Ohio State University, where he was a faculty as well for some period of time. Worked at the prestigious Xerox Research Park, the one in Palo Alto, if I remember correctly, which has done some phenomenal research in a lot of different areas. And he had a stint of successful startup exists in the life, the most famous being Selectica. And he is right now working on a new stealth mode startup, Predictika. Hopefully he'll tell us a lot about that as well. And with that, I would like to start the panel, initiating the discussion. First of all, conversational AI. It's one of those areas of AI where we are trying to track and crack some of the most challenging problems in artificial intelligence, mimicking human speech and human interaction. And one of the most successful applications of conversational AI have been in digital, intelligent digital assistants. And why is it complicated? We are not going to talk about all the algorithms today, but essentially it's something which requires successful working of the following components in artificial intelligence, each of which is extremely tough to crack. Automatic speech recognition, natural language understanding, semantic analysis, text-to-speech, and when you put everything together, it needs to work flawlessly. And on top of it, there are complications like anaphora resolution and stuff related to contextual analysis. The company which has gone the most far in conversational AI, undoubtedly, is Amazon with Alexa product. And they have done an amazing job in terms of productizing, like every other product that they have built. Before I bring in the Google's perspective from Surbhi, just to give you an idea, Amazon Alexa is something which is where the revenue stream is never directly, I think, announced by the company. It has reached and has a ramp up, which has been one of the most fast in the area of whether you call it consumer devices, home appliances. It has just went through the roof. And Amazon has been successful. It's a product which is deployed through Amazon Cloud. So it's a very good example where cloud computing has enabled rise of artificial intelligence, and the product streams work in a very unique way. I'll come to Alexa a little later, but let me start the panel conversations now, starting with Surbhi. Surbhi, give us some idea about Google Home and how Google Assistant is part of a broader ecosystem. And compared to Amazon, which is trying to play with a single product, Google is going with an ecosystem approach. So
thank you, Tushar. Thank you for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. Like Tushar mentioned, I am product manager for Google Assistant and Google Home, and responsible for how we can build user journeys for our users on the hardware, the product, as well as the services. So this is a unique combination where we are selling the product, but our aim is to bring journeys to users that will be delightful, that I think our keynote speaker said that time is the essence, to save user time. And how we do that is through these conversations where we bring the data to the fingertips through a conversation to the user. And some of the challenges that we face that we will talk at as we go in the journey are it's easy to say, yes, conversational AI, to have a chatbot, but actually replicating human conversation is very hard. And we have barely scratched the surface on how we are doing that today. Is if you look at a user search journey or any other query, you can bring that information to the user through a conversation, but then how do you take it to the next level and have a continued conversation? That's where it gets very tricky, where we maintain a context when we are having a conversation, but for a machine to maintain that context is very hard. Some of the things that we have been able to, I'm not going to comment on Alexa as much. I'll focus my energy on sharing with you what we are doing on Google Home, which when we came to market about 2 years ago, the idea was that let's bring some conversation, some way to communicate with the user, give them information on their fingertips. But which of these journeys will stick was kind of a question mark. We were trying to boil the ocean, and as in the last 2 years we have seen, there have been a lot of critical journeys which have really stuck with the customer. Being able to get content, music at your fingertips without having to go through your provider and then search what music you want to listen to. You can, based on the time of the day or the mood that you're in, you can just query for a particular kind of music, and it's there. And another thing that I want to bring out in what we have been able to do is bring the personalization. So if I say, play some music versus if Tushar, you say play some music, it'll be completely different output based on our preferences and knowledge that assistant has of the user. So, based on the type of music you listen to, based on the queries that you do, we have a wholesome understanding of the user. So I think that's what we are focusing on.
Yeah, that's a good sales pitch from Google. I'm just kidding.
Oh, always. Product managers have to know how to sell their product, right?
I don't
think
doubt
we should get you two to put on boxing gloves and first figure out.
I'm ready.
Let's do that.
I won't let you be the judge since you are from her campus, so I have to be very careful about it.
Well, I'm from the best campus anyway, so that's right.
Thank you. Before we're certainly going to get some broader perspective from Sanjay, but before that, Piyush, you have been looking at a lot of companies in enterprise space and startups who are trying to figure out a way to make their mark. Your thoughts and perspective, or real thoughts and perspective, what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis in terms of how people are trying to play this game.
Thanks, Tushar, for inviting me here, and good to see this turnout here. Just as before I answer your question, I want to preface that I've spent 2 decades between PricewaterhouseCoopers and IBM, primarily in client-facing roles, implementing technology solutions to solve business problems. I don't implement technology just for the sake of being cutting edge. So that's been one. And so after about 18 years with IBM and PricewaterhouseCoopers combined, I decided to jump into the startup world and advise a number of startups, as well as work with a bunch of startups as part of the SpringML company, which gives me an opportunity to look at the problem from not only the enterprise space, but what problems startups typically face. So getting back to the specific question here, conversational AI is not a fad. It's something which is increasingly becoming mainstream. And as big companies, such as a consumer product group company, which is a $6 billion company, is trying to use conversational AI / chatbots for its beauty brand. We are doing an example of a chatbot / recommendation engine combined for recommending based on the face type, based on the complexion, and so on and so forth of people visiting their website. On the other extreme is a chatbot, conversational AI product that we've built for a real estate company, which is, again, a $26 billion company, which many of you would know provides real estate for not only Google and Amazon, but also for other companies. And what they are using it for classifying all the incoming cases that their renters, that their commercial renters are facing, and automatically classifying those cases and using AI, ML, and then ultimately using various Google APIs to classify and further process and improve the workflow by using these intelligent agents. So essentially for customer support or whether for specialized cases, and we'll talk about more as I go forward. But just to give you an example of the various things that are happening in the industry here, with big companies as well as small companies are using conversational AI platforms for building these solutions.
Perfect. So before I move into the ecosystem part of it, Sanjay, I want to hear something different from you. Beyond intelligent digital assistants, we have chatbots, which have, of course, a conversational AI component in different formats. Your company, of course, stealth mode, can't talk a lot about it. We would like to get a more philosophical and long-term view from you about chatbots in general. I mean, they have been around for some time and there have been some progress. How do you see that industry evolving? You know, where do you see it going? Your views we'll love to have from you. You have a mic, right? Perfect.
If it works, yeah, it works.
Absolutely.
So I also bring a little bit of additional perspective because when I got my PhD in AI in 1980, that was the first AI boom. And most people here probably don't remember it. I think Shri was referring to it. I still remember going down University Avenue, and there was a company called Technology, and I just walked in, and they said, "Oh, you're PhD in AI? Here's an offer." Right on the spot, they're willing to give an offer. No references checked or anything. And of course, as you know how they turned out, 6-7 years later, there was the AI winter. What's interesting is that the application that really fueled that AI boom was a problem called configuration that Carnegie Mellon had done for DEC. It took 20 years from there till my company got public, Predictika, which is actually doing configuration. So from the first AI boom of 1980 to the time when the first company went public that was actually commercializing that was 20 years. If you look at AI, the deep learning work was done at University of Toronto somewhere around 2009, 2010. It sort of started picking up after that. 2013, 14 is when I think people started making some real dent in automatically classifying images using deep learning. And now, of course, you're looking at a big boom. But I think it'll probably be another 5, 7 years, 10 years before it gets to the point where people can routinely build these products. And it will no longer be AI per se. It'll be like, who has the best algorithm, or I think as Ajay Agarwal said, who is making the best prediction? But ultimately, you're selling predictions. You know, your ability to predict based on part data and the accuracy of the prediction is what will stand you out, as opposed to the fact that using TensorFlow or using, Baidu something or the other or whatever, right? So anyway, so coming back to conversational AI, I think it's important to see to understand why is everyone talking about it. Is it just the latest fad? So I want to go down a few things. One is, if you look at the data, if you look at the transition in computing, we went from disconnected machines for like 30, 40 years. Then came the internet in the mid-90s. Now machines could talk to each other, they could cooperate. Another 7, 8 years go by, and now we get mobile phones, 2010, personal device, it's with you all the time, you know who it is. 2016 was a very important watershed year. 50% of a mobile user's time is actually going into messaging programs. 50%. So imagine how many apps there are. There are millions and millions of apps. And yet, between Facebook Messenger and Instagram and Snapchat and maybe 2, 3 others, half the time that you're spending on the phone is going into these apps. The remaining 30, 40% is going into your browser and email and so on. So the 99.99% of the apps that businesses are creating for you to talk to your bank, your insurance company, or your retailer, or your real estate agent, or a doctor, they're not being used. They're not being downloaded, they're not being used. So I think companies like Google and Facebook and so on realized that what if you allow companies to build automated agents that could live inside messaging programs, so you could talk to them just as talking to your friends and colleagues. I mean, that's what really fueled it. So it is really the mind share thing. The second thing is the friction for a user you're talking to, remember, you're spending half the time inside this program. You're talking to your friend, and you say, oh, I placed an order with the broker. I need to figure out, did it go through or not? You exit the program, you go to your phone, you go to your shop program. Now you're hunting through the menus to figure out where to get the status. Look at the time wastage. Look at the friction. What if you could, inside your Facebook Messenger, you could just click on Schwab, hey, what happened to my order? Or Schwab can just proactively tell you, hey, you placed the order expired, order got executed. I mean, the reduction and friction and the convenience is so much that I think conversational programs is really the next wave. And now you take it one step forward, you're not just texting, you're talking to them. I mean, my favorite example is, last 15 years I've had cars where you could talk to them. We never could talk to them because they couldn't understand my accent, right? I mean, all of us unfortunately we have no problem understanding each other, but our cars don't. The new generation cars, my wife just bought a BMW, flawlessly understands their accent, doesn't require any training, and now you can tell the car, take me to 3975 Freedom Circle. My old BMW, you punch S, A, N, T, A, space, Clara, then F. I mean, it takes forever to enter it. Hit the speaker button, directions for 397. So I think the convenience of being able to talk to these devices is phenomenal.
So basically what you're hinting, and by the way, I'd love to get a ride in your new BMW. It's always a good idea.
Nothing fancy. It's not Albina or any of those very high-end cars.
Free ride is always good.
Yeah.
Right. So, which I always love.
Did I say it's free?
I assumed it. So picking a cue from there, going to the next question, after which I will actually open it to the audience, is how do you build and make this thing successful? And for that, you have to have an ecosystem around it. A game which Microsoft played really well, a game which gave tough time to IBM over a period of time. And the couple of IBMers here. So how is conversational AI picking up, and why is it really going through the roof? Let's start with Amazon, we'll talk about Google, and then get some more perspective. Alexa. They have got two features which go with Alexa. One is called ASK and one is called AVS. And this is all public information. AVS is automated voice skills or Alexa voice skills, where if you have any product in any sector, you can basically work with Alexa to use its voice recognition capability and build on top of it. Other is ASK, which is Alexa Skills Kit, which means you can take Alexa as it is and then build your own APIs on top of their API and then make it a product. And your skills are then available to people across the platform, as well as people who are using AVS. It's like basically an ability to extend their APIs to build your own solutions and make a market around it. And right now, as we stand and talk together, there are roughly 50,000 Alexa skills in the market, which is almost a magnitude better than most of its competitors. And this ability to open up the platform, let everybody come on the platform and build around it, is what is giving it the momentum. This is how Microsoft built its business. To some extent, Oracle built the business, or any software company which wants to succeed in long term has to do it. That's the game they have played, and that's how it has caught up. Now, that's the trajectory, that's the way they are thinking through that. And of course, when they build up skills, they think about the retail business, and those are more minor details. But that is the bigger perspective you have to think. So if you're thinking about building a business, if you're thinking about a startup company playing in this area, my word of advice, whatever 2 cents is worth it, don't try to get into the business of fundamentally figuring out a better algorithm for automatic speech recognition or NLP. Those are tough businesses to get into, or a better conversational AI agent, unless you're a faculty at University of Toronto, which is a different aspect. Think about how you can leverage the existing platforms and build products and solutions on top of it. So you start from something which already is there, and you think about specific vertical solutions or horizontal solutions, however you want to call it, and make a business out of it. That's the key. That's the way to grow. Now, let me stop here. Amazon has opened skills, and people are building ecosystems around it. Google is playing the game in a slightly different manner. They certainly have opened it up in form of accents, about which Surbhi will talk about, but they're building their own ecosystem to make sure that they capture good part of the value. If you remember the Porter's 5 forces in MBA schools, there's a buyer power, supplier power, vertical integration, horizontal integration. Google is trying to figure out to use the game where they can capture bigger part of the pie on their own. Let me stop here. So why don't you educate and help audience understand how Google Assistant is part of a broader game beyond just accents and helping Google enter into it.
So thank you, Tushar. Yes, we also believe that working with partners to enable better use cases and better journeys and solving pain points for the customer is the way to go. So like you said, that instead of having our partners solve everything, we have done a lot of that speech recognition, we have done a lot of NLP, and we want to work with partners who want to build journeys on top of that. So we are aiming to build an ecosystem where we can complete end-to-end user journeys, where we take the query, we parse it, and then we take some intelligence from there and pass it along to the partner, and that's the actions on Google you were talking about, and then help that partner to complete their journey. And I'll give you a simple example, like Starbucks, if you want to order a coffee in the morning, again, saving time as you're getting ready and doing things, actions on Google will help you order that coffee while you're stepping out, and by the time you get there, you can pick up your coffee and be on your way. So that's just one very small example, but that's the kind of ecosystem we want to build with other partners. We are also looking at bringing the overall home control, whether it's your thermostat or it's your lights or it's your entertainment. How can we make it very easy for a user to control everything through voice? So those are the kind of journeys we are working towards. We are working with a lot of media partners as well who believe in that searching through voice is the next big thing. Instead of browsing and looking for it, interact with your conversational assistant to figure out what is the next thing you want to watch, what is the next piece of music you want to listen to, what podcast you want to listen to. All of these things that take you a lot of time in your day-to-day life, how can we solve it with the help of partners? And we do have a very mature and a very good product because we have a lot of user data. So, in our ML forum, we talk about this, how we have the cold start problem. In partnering with a company like Google, who has already built that and solved that problem, you would not have to worry about that. You come in and you think of the user journey you want to focus on, you want to give that moment of delight to your user, and you just focus on that. You don't have to worry about how you will build the speech model or the NLP for your user.
Makes sense.
If I just want to add on to what Surbhi just said, so essentially, Surbhi, you're talking about customer experience. Mm-hmm. It's the experience part which is key in any business, and conversational AI is, the way I have seen through implementations, is enhancing customer experience and enhancing ability of humans to be able to expand their capabilities. That's what it's all about, right? And being a premier partner to Google on both machine learning and big data analytics, SpringML has done a number of such cases, and I personally have been involved in a number of these examples where the customer doesn't want to buy a product. They want a problem to be solved. They don't even buy into the ecosystem theory. I mean, we talked about ecosystem versus product versus app. I mean, we built a product on top of Salesforce to sell predictions. And what we found was each customer wanted it done in a different manner, which meant customizing, which meant spending a lot of time understanding their business. And I think I can see James nodding. So I think there is a common theme that right now, every startup which wants to be in the ML space may want to aspire to be a product company, but ultimately it's in the business of providing the right experience and providing a solution that further down the line might mature into a product and ultimately into a platform.
Makes sense. So before we actually going to be opening up to the audience, Sanjay sir, we'd like to get specific thoughts from you about since you have been, not just your current startup, but you've been in multiple startups, successful exits, what's your thought, and it can be different from what we have spoken, in terms of startups trying to build something from scratch in terms of fundamental technology versus basically kind of riding the wave with some of the established players to be part of their ecosystem by building on top of them?
So I have a kind of contrarian view to what you were saying. I don't
kind
believe
of guessed it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe in riding anyone else's ecosystem, because I think there is no value add to that. I mean, a lot of people can do that, and if that's all you aspire to, nothing wrong with that. More power to you. But I've always succeeded by building some core technology that is defensible. I mean, I did that at Predictika. We did that at a company I was doing at Xerox PARC in machine learning, and same thing here. And I think the reason we're doing that is I've looked at Google Flow, Dialogflow, Amazon Alexa, Watson, they all suffer from the same fundamental problem. They don't understand what it means to support conversation. They're basically automating call centers, IVR, call trees.
Got it.
Which is not conversation.
Makes sense.
So here's my example of a conversation. We came to this country, we'd never eaten pizza in India. We come here, we learn about pizza, we pick up the phone, call Domino's. Imagine the dialogue it goes through. Hey, I want a pizza. What do you have? Oh, I have these kinds of pizza. Okay, what can I put on it? I don't eat meat. Okay, fine, don't have these. Large pizza. How many will it support? So that's the dialogue we have, right? So unless you can get to the point where the chatbots, the conversation systems can really support that kind of a dialogue, we don't really have a conversation.
Makes
right?
sense.
We have either a very rigid workflow, or we have a query style thing where you ask a question, you get an answer, and the next question has no connection to the previous one, right? So I think that's the kind of thing we are focusing on.
Okay, can I just say one thing? So I agree with you that some problems are harder to solve because conversation is not completely solved yet, right? You can have a context to 1, 2, or 3 queries, and then you kind of start losing it. But I think there are other use cases that people looking at exploring and coming up with solutions could find it useful to use a platform that has already done some basic foundational work and given AI and ML kind of APIs available to partners. So there's
absolutely.
both.
I misstated what I was saying, but yes.
No, but
I talked about what I'm focusing on.
I completely agree with you. And by the way, guys, it reminds me of an old quotation I learned a long time back. We all come from a country which is the largest democracy, and we are living in the oldest democracy. We purposely kept Sanjay Mittal sir in the panel because he's going to bring a contrarian view. And here is the definition of democracy, very different from conversational AI, which I learned a long time back. I may not agree with you, but I will defend till death your right to express your opinion. So I love it.
Very American.
Very American.
Very American.
So guys, we're almost coming to an end. We have time for one question. And, we'll have to give it to Paul, who organized the tie this year. And he's a good friend of mine. Sulabh, you are not yet got there, so give him a chance.
Well, talking about startups, so can you go and tell me what is the monetization for the startups who use your platform? I don't see any.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So there are some...
You're talking about Amazon.
Google. I picked it up because Amazon has a higher number of skills and more startups are around there.
Right now it's zero revenue produced by ISVs.
So, I certainly cannot challenge your numbers, but I'll tell you a way to make money. So, some specific verticals like automotive, healthcare, where you're bringing in products which are built up like using ASK and AVS, the way they are basically working is, they basically build specific solutions targeted to a particular vertical, and the way they typically pay in conversational AI, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is on per API, per how many times you use an API. So either you can use, when you're taking products directly from Amazon like ASR or NLU, you pay on per API basis, 1,000 use of a particular API, you pay certain cents. When you go and use and build a skill set on top of it and sell it to customers, it has to be a per API model based on cloud. That's the direction you have to go. It's not going to be license based.
No, but after talking, you're saying there are 50,000 people who have built skills. Show me one company that is making a dime out of it.
That's a very good question.
Hey, Tushar, can I take a crack at that?
Why don't you go ahead?
So Paul, think about 1997, 98 when the internet came along. People didn't even know how to make money on the web, right? But people still did it. When Google came out, they were clueless on how to make money. Then Overture invented keyword search, and suddenly Google became a monster, right? Same thing happened with apps. It took a long time for people to figure out how to monetize it. So I think the question is not how to make money. The question is this the right paradigm shift that's happening? Are people going to fundamentally interact with computing devices, intelligent devices this way? If that is what you believe in, money will follow.
I agree with Paul's question. Actually, Paul, I wouldn't. Can I clarify?
Okay, well, let me complete. So if you don't
is going to punch us again, we'll have one is good enough.
If you don't believe in that fundamental thesis, then you can ask all these questions.
I don't believe in fundamental thesis, but the point is, application stores came in. There was a revenue model already there. You're telling me we're going to go back again to the beginning, where there was no revenue. We'll figure out revenue.
No, he's already given you a model. A per call model is actually very viable. You can say, look, I have a bot, and you pay me for every time a user uses it. Number one, or if I reduce your customer interaction time, you pay me for that. Or if the deal's closed because of on a self-service basis. So there's so many ways to.
That's what
So
I'm
Paul,
asking. It's been 3 years now.
No, Paul, here's the thing. I thought I've prepared with a
Wrong
list
question to ask.
of... No, I thought I prepared myself with a list of companies I could have given to you. But if you type alexa.amazon.com, I'm pretty sure you can get specific names of companies who are working with them. And it may not be some of the home startups here, but some big companies. There are certain names I thought I prepared for it. It's my fault, but I'll give it to the question. Guys, when you get into a tough situation, you always say, time is over. Thank you.
Thank you very much.